Hey, what's going on, guys? Today we're going to take this to-do application and we're going to break a piece of it down into a component. Breaking this piece down into a component will really allow us to take a look at how the parent-to-child communication works, which is, really that's what's really at the core of any kind of single-page application, is how you can break things down to components and how they can communicate with each other. Okay, let's get right into it then. So over in our Visual Studio Code, if you haven't been following along, or if you just want to start off with new, I'll put a link in the description for this branch, this part 3 component start, and you'll be able to just pull that right down and you can pick up right where I'm at. Now, if you just pull down that branch, you'll want to do a .NET restore to make sure that you pull in all of your packages. I've already done that, so you can see that it didn't really need to pull down anything, and then you'll pretty much be good to go right after that. Now, the first thing that we probably want to do is, well, let's just take a look at where we were before. So inside of pages, index.razor, we had this kind of layout going on. You got the to-do app, the title here, our input, and then you have the for loop that is basically just printing out all of the to-do items, or the to-dos themselves, with the text and the closing icon. So what I think I want to do is we want to take this piece right here, basically, and we want to turn that into a component. Okay, so inside of shared, we already have like a nav menu razor in here, and that's kind of a component on its own. So we want to create a new file, and we're going to call it to-do-item.razor, just like that. Now, the way I named that, to-do item, with camel case, which means that the first letter of every word in the in the name is capitalized. That's camel case, or Pascal case, sorry. Naming it that way is actually kind of the convention, at least for right now in Blazor, similar to how nav menu is capitalized like that. When we add this to-do item to the index page, it actually will be shown with a capital T and a capital I, which you'll see in here in a second. So we're going to come back over here. In this new page file we just opened here, we're going to go ahead and add code, just like this. That is the way you declare a code block, and we'll just add put an H2 and H2 like this, and we'll just say to-do item. Oop, just like that. Okay, save that, and then back over in here in our index .razor, let's just go ahead and print this out every time something a to-do item is entered. So do to-do item like this, and that is basically the syntax that you're going to want right there. It's just the two items. See how it's capital T, capital I, just like our file name. And Blazor just kind of picks that up in the background and knows what you're kind of asking for. So you go ahead and do that, and then inside of our terminal, if you don't already have this open, you could do control tilde. That works both for Windows and Mac inside of Visual Studio Code, and it will open up this terminal here, and then do .NET, and we'll do .NET, how about we do .NET watch run, that way we can always get our server to restart every time we make changes. All right, let's let that spin up. Give it a second here. Okay, looks like it's running, so we'll go back over here, and I already had it loaded from before, but we'll reload it just fresh. Okay, so there we go. So I have my stored item that I had in there before. Now if we remove this, it will also get removed, so let's just make sure it is working. So we'll say hello world, and all right, there we go. So to-do item, we got something working here. All right, we're on the right track. So back in our to-do item razor, we're going to want to be able to take in some parameters. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and add a property here. We'll call it to-do, and we're going to call this to-do item for the property name. Now, in order to let Blazor know that we want to be able to add this upon declaration of the component, we're going to say this will be we'll add an attribute here called parameter. This lets Blazor know that, like, hey, when I declare this component, I want to be able to pass in this to-do item as a parameter to use inside my component, basically. So this is yelling at me. Let's see. So, oh, we need to pull in a using statement because it's wondering where we are getting this model name from. So here we have Blazor to do, and then we'll just pull in from models. That'll fix that. And let's see, we got another error here. Member names cannot be the same as their enclosing type. Right, so since I named this to-do item.razor, you can see up here as well, and I'm naming this to-do item, Blazor does not like that we have two of the same names going on here. So I just need to name this something else. For now, we'll just call this model. How about that? Something pretty simple. Convention for properties that are declared as parameters or have or that are going to be passed in as parameters. The convention is typically to capitalize or Pascal case these names. So we'll just kind of run with the convention there. So back over in our index.razor, let's go ahead and pass in this to-do. Should be right here. So we're going to take this to-do and just pass it into our component that we declared here. So here we'll say model, and then we'll have an at to-do, or lowercase there, to-do, just like that. Okay, we'll keep saving here. We have no errors so far. And for the last little bit, let's go ahead and remove this to-do item, and we'll say at model dot and title. Now we should be able to see our code print out basically the same exact thing it was printing before, except the text will be large in this H2 here. So let that rebuild. Okay, back over into the code itself. Refresh the page. All right, so cool. So the same thing that was printing here, hello world, is now printing in our H2, which this is inside of our component, right? So no errors in the console. If we hover over this, we should be able to see our H2 printed there, right? And then here's our other item up there. So, all right, cool. It seems to be working so far. So let's go back over into the code. Okay, the next thing we're going to want to do over inside of our index.razor is just copy what we have in here. So let's just remove that. Okay, and we will paste it in here. Let's go ahead and align that a little better. We can delete our H2 because the title will be displayed down here. Now, anywhere that we have to do from the previous page in index.razor, we're going to want to replace. So we'll say model here and model here. And that looks like it, not too bad. Now, next we have these properties, or not properties, but methods that we had back inside of our index.razor. So we're probably going to want to move those over, but keep some of the same functionality. So let's go ahead and grab this mark as complete. We'll pull it outside of this to-do item and then just put it right in here. Okay, align that, and then we have this remove to do. For now, how about we just get rid of this line? Can we do that? Okay, let's just get rid of that line. By doing that, I hold command and hit / in order to give this little kind of comment line going. Oh, I didn't even see this one. So we also still have model. Well, so we don't need to replace this because previously, when we were passing this in, it didn't know, since the component didn't know who it was, it didn't have a reference exactly to which to-do was marking as complete. You always had to pass in the to-do as mark as complete, but since we already do know, we don't actually need to do this. The only thing we need to do here is just reference the to-do that we're inside of. So we'll just say model, the one that we already have passed in. We don't have a save to-dos just yet, so we will pull that probably in later. And we can, like I said, we can get rid of that mark as complete in here. Actually, in fact, since we don't need to pass in anything, we can just simplify this. We can just say mark as complete like that, and actually put a symbol in front of there. Okay. Let's see if this will build and load for us. I think we're in a decent spot right here. Let's see. So it's building. Okay. It looks like it's working. So let's refresh the page. All right, we still have our hello world. We don't have our X because I commented that out. Let's see if one more to do. Tofu. Okay, it looks like we can still add to-dos, but we can't delete them. If I mark this, still marks as complete. Now, if I refresh the page, notice it didn't save the mark as complete. It still saves the to-do in the local storage from the previous video, the part 2. But it doesn't actually save this mark as complete is because this isn't being called anymore. Now we can't just call this like this because save to do's isn't a method on the to do component that we have here. It is from the parent, and we'll have to pull that in. But for now, let us move on to how we might be able to do something like that. So somehow we're going to need to pass in a reference to this save to do's method. All right, so the way we're going to do that is probably declare another parameter in here. So we'll say parameter, and we will add the property, and the property type is actually called event callback. Just like that. And the property name, we will just call it save to do's. Simple enough. And then in here, we'll actually be able to say save to do's, but we're going to need to pass in a reference to this save to do's down. Now we won't be able to just call it just like this, but we'll fix that here in a second. So I kind of like to keep my to do's when I declare opponents. I kind of like to keep them line by line. So we have a parameter now called save to do's, and we will set that to the method save to do's, just like this. Or is it save? Yep, save to do's. Okay, cool. So we're going to pass that in, and back in here. Now the reason this is red is save to do's cannot be used like a method, and that is because when you call this type that we're passing in as a parameter actually needs to be invoked instead of called directly. So see if we do a dot here, we'll have this method called invoke async. We're just going to use that. Now invoke async does take something. We won't actually be passing anything in here, and I didn't find a way in the documentation to get around this. I did look into seeing if we could use a action here instead, but this isn't recommended by the community, and I did not find a way to not be able to pass in some sort of value here. So for now, we're just going to pass in null, and maybe if someone in the comments wants to leave, let me know how this is possible, but I couldn't find a way. So for now, this is how we're going to do it. So now that we have that there, and we save the application, it looks like it loaded. Now let's see if when we actually click our mark as complete, if it actually stays that way after refresh. Oh, so let's go with this direction. Refresh the page. All right, we're still here. So let's mark both these complete and then refresh. Okay, cool. So now it actually is saving the way we wanted to, even after we refresh the page. Okay, back over in our code, let's go ahead and get this remove to do working. So let's create another parameter that we will pass in, property, and we're going to need two things. One is we want to reference to the parent's remove to do, and we also need to know the index. So this first one will actually be an int, and we'll just call it index. And then we'll create another parameter, which we will call, let's see, this will be another event callback, just like how we have above, event callback, and we will call this remove to do. Like that. Okay, and so we're going to want to be able to call this basically on the same line. So let's do command and /, or it's probably control and / if you're on a Windows computer. And so we're going to want to be able to call this in here somehow. So let's make another method that we can call this from. So we'll return void, and we will say we'll just call it remove. Right? here, and then we will actually make this call the remove to do, which is a event callback again. So we're going to need to call that invoke async. Looks like it already has it highlighted, and instead of passing null like we do with save to dos down here, we'll actually pass that index variable that we're going to pass in. And this index is just giving us a reference that we can say, hey, I am to do 1, go ahead and remove me. And the component kind of just passes that up with this reference that we have here that we get from the parent. So this remove will actually just be called in here. And that way we can simplify this a little bit. Oops, didn't mean to delete all of that. Let's start that over. So we got 2 quotes there, and then we'll say our @ symbol for our reference, and then remove, just like that. And then that's all we should need to do here. So back over in our index.razor, we'll just want to basically pass this along to our component. Right, so we'll have remove to do is equal to do, and then we're also going to want to pass in our index, which will be this index right here, and we'll just say index, just like that. Okay, did I miss something there? Remove to do, what's a method group to event callback? Let's see, so I'm passing remove to do to remove to do. Did I call this something different over here? Remove to do. Okay, welcome back. That took me a second just to figure out what was going on. But what the compiler is complaining at down here, which is cannot convert from method group to event callback. What it's actually complaining about, despite the error not being exactly clear, is it just wants me to define what the event callback, which is this invoke async on the remove to do reference, is going to take, which is an integer. So with that, if we save that, it should rebuild without issues, and we should be able to go back to our page and see if when we actually click on remove to do, if it works. So let's refresh the page. Got no errors here. We seem to be missing data. I don't know what happened there, but let's see. Hello world. Okay, testing. Okay, that still works. If we remove, that seems to work just fine. Let's one more to do. Let's add that. Let's remove this one now and this last one. Refresh the page. It doesn't look like I have any added ones. Let's do this. Just make sure that it actually is still saving everything. Cool. Awesome. So it looks like everything's working. All right, just for a added bonus, let's do a slight bit of cleanup. So we have this class that is being defined, well, not class, but we have some CSS that is being defined by this kind of inner logic here. And I just want to pull this out into something just for a bit of cleanup. So we'll make another property here, and this will return a string, and we will call this, let's see, let's call it is complete. Let's call it is complete CSS class. How about that? And then we're going to get rid of this part, and we're going to give it basically like a lambda or an expression body, I believe it is called. And we're going to do basically the logic in here that just says model dot is complete. If it is complete, we'll return complete. Or actually, this is probably lowercase. And if it's not, then we will just return string dot empty. You could just return empty quotes, but string dot empty is probably the typical or more professional way to do it. So is complete CSS class. So instead of having this here, we'll delete all the way up to here. Delete that, and then get rid of the rest of that. End it with a double quote, and then right in here we'll just say then is complete CSS class, and then with that we should get the same results. Basically, this is basically like a getter, just a getter, and it will evaluate whether or not model is complete is true. If it is true, then it is complete, and it will return this extra complete class. which will basically be replaced here with just the text as complete. Otherwise, it'll just be empty, so this will be the only class that's actually in the code. So let's go back over here. Looks like that built just fine. When we click this, it still does say completed, so we'll say clean room. Probably the only actual to-do we have done in this entire tutorial, at least for part 3 here. We'll just say one more. Make sure these are still working. We can undo them, refresh the page. Everything is still saving. Awesome. All right, guys, that wraps up this video. I hope you learned a little bit more about Blazor and how to create a component in Blazor and how that component can interact with its parent. I will push this code up to GitHub and leave a description, a link for it in the description below. So if you enjoyed the video, subscribe, and if you didn't, well, subscribe anyways, and leave me some feedback in the comments below. And until next time, see you guys.